Hello and welcome back. So last example we have understand about Angular services and also we have understand about the observable. Okay, so let's have an example on it. So practical example so that you get the clear idea to how an Angular application is gonna fetch data from the server. Okay, so let's have an example. So for this I have a plan. So there is uh, a website called JSON and this is a fake REST API website. So in this you have a lot of URLs and for that different kind of data. So when I click on this users, see here. So here I have a URL. Okay, it's a server URL and for this URL I'll be getting some data. So what my plan is, I want to create an Angular component and Angular service. So that is able to fetch data from this server location, and I want to bind it to my component. So let's have it now. So first of all for this, and this is of type users data. So this is users data. So you need to create. So if it is users data, you have to create one user list, one component you have to create component, and one users service you create, and then from this URL you have to get the data. Okay, fine. And what about the model? Okay, so you need to have a model that is capital user model. Okay, the object type. But thing is, one important story I tell you. So this is your data, right? So for this, you have to create a model. So it means you have to create an interface which contains the ID, name, username, and all. So there is some online tools which will gives you automatic interface for this type of data. So for example, you can have a search for interface JSON. Okay, the search for interface JSON, you get a website. This one, some gvleak.com. Yep, here. So this is a website where you can substitute your data and you can get a proper interfaces. Okay, the object types. Okay, I mean your model. So what my plan is, I'll copy everything from here. Okay, I'll go to this website and here in this left hand side, you just replace this code with your code and you can give a name. So whose data it is? It's a user's data. Just a capital user because my model is what? User. So as a user here. And then you just click on a generate. So what happens on the right hand side? See, you got an interface user and we get everything and internally you have address, geo and company, some nested objects as well. Okay, looks good. So copy this code. Okay, so now what I do is in app I create new directory called models. In this I create a file, a TypeScript, just a capital user, and in that I'll paste it. Okay, so which contains user object and which also contains some few nested objects as well. Okay, fine. So now you're done with the model. Now let's create a component and service. So how to create a component? First I create a folder, components, and one more folder for services. Okay, for components, I right click, open in terminal. So how to create a component? NgGC and just say user hyphen list. This is my component. Just press enter. So you get the user list component ready. And then services. So I have to create a service for fetching data from server. So right click on this, open in terminal. Just say NgGS, S stands for service. Just say user. So directly dot service will come automatic and never give dot service. Okay, just give user and enter. See, you get user dot service. Okay, so now component is ready and service is ready and Okay, what's the next step? So can we connect the component over here? Let's say app user list. Okay, so that you get an empty user list. It works. And what about this heading? It's not pipes. It's a server connection, server with HTTP. Okay, so now Angular is connected to server. Okay, so up to here is fine. So now we have to uh, see when your Angular application want to connect to the server, so it's uses the HTTP library. Okay, so Angular comes with its own HTTP library that is in HTTP client module. So for forms, we have used the forms module. So like that, for HTTP, we have to import and configure the HTTP client module. And where you have to do that is, first thing is you have to go inside app module. In this, see same like our forms module. Let's say import HTTP client module. Okay, HTTP client module, and this you need to add in the imports array. Okay, so with this module, you'll be able to connect to the server for fetching or any kind of server operation. Okay, so this is the first step. And after that, you just focus on a service. Just go to the service. Yeah, so now this is the service, is a mediator between your server and your component. Okay, so this is the actual data provider. So your service is gonna connect to this particular URL and fetching the data from there. So how is going to fetch data is, let's um, this user service has to use the HTTP library. So now user service depends on a HTTP library. So how you get the HTTP library object is again dependency injection. So you just have to declare private HTTP client of type HTTP client. It's not module, just client is a class. So it is coming from Angular common and HTTP library. So using this object, you will be fetching data from the server. Okay, and if you declare a variable in the constructor, so Angular automatically inject this object to you, so you can start using it. Okay, as per the dependency injection rule. Now I create a method for fetching data from the server, and what type of method I'll be fetching all users. So let's say get users. I write like this. Let me public get users is a method. So in this I have to get data. So let's say let data URL of type string is equal to, let's paste it. Okay, so from which server URL you're gonna fetch data. This is the URL. It's a public URL. So I'll tell you how to fetch data from private URLs also. Yeah. So data URL, and then what you have to do is return this dot HTTP client dot get. So what is this get is? It's a HTTP method. It's a HTTP method because we are gonna fetch data from server. Okay, it's get. If you want to do a form submission, it is like a post. Okay, and we want to update something at server side is a put request. We want to delete something at server side is delete request. So I just want to get data from server is a get request. Okay, so here you have to provide a data URL. Okay, fine, you will done. And then here, and what type of data you receive from here, it is a, a raw data that is called observable, and that is user array. Okay, and for get also you specify the user array. Okay, that's fine. So now you understand what is this observable. So your services keep observing for your data, right? So streaming data, and it's keep keep getting the synchronous data, right? So and once you get that raw data, say this is raw data, right? Just keep getting this raw data, and this raw data we know exactly what type of data it is because we have taken a model. So we have to typecast to our own type user array because it's an array of user objects. Okay, fine. So now you have a method for fetching data from the server. Now using this service, I have to uh, call this method in my component and get the data. So let's see. And also, as I told in the last, as I explained in the last video, how a component will receive data from a service if you subscribe to the service. Let's see how. So I go to user list component. Let me inject service because I am dependent on service. This is a user service of type user service. Okay, and here I'll declare an empty variable. Let's say public users of type user array is equal to, let's say, an empty array as user array. Okay, you just declare an empty array. So if you want to see that, let me go to HTML. As of now, I'll write some pre-tag expression. Just say users with JSON pipe. So as of now, I declared just empty array. So you get here an empty array. Okay, so now my uh, component contains an empty array. Fine. Now I have to fetch data from a service. So how you do is like this. This dot. You must write in ng on init function for fetching data from server. Okay, it is a lifecycle method. We'll see the lifecycle methods in the coming classes. You have two things: ng on init and destroy. So this executes when component is fully loaded, and destroy is for when the component is removed from the DOM. Okay, so this dot user service dot get users dot subscribe. Okay, you must subscribe to that. So if you subscribe, in that there is a callback function, so that will receive a data. Okay, and that data is of type user array. You don't give user array, it will come automatic. Just give data. Okay, and that data I want to assign to my users. So what I do is this dot users is equal to the data. That's all. So now check. See, you got data. Super. See, very simple. When you want to get data from server, first you have to import the HTTP client module, and then you configure in the imports array, because of this module only we can able to fetch data from server. Next, the next step, you create a service using the HTTP client, and that is gonna fetch data, and that observable you can typecast to the required type. And once you have done with this, you can inject this service to the component here, and using that service, and after subscribing, I'll get data, and that data I assign to local variable, and that local variable's data you can see here. But this is just a raw data. Um, I want to have a proper table format. Yes, of course you can do that. You have raw data, you can convert to table. So let's do that. So I just write a section with some class margin top 3 and one container, one row, and then single column. Let's say p.h3. Let's say user list, and let's say paragraph lorem 30 tab. Okay, and you want a different color, so let's say text danger. Okay, fine. And below that, I just take another section. So here, let's take another one margin top 3 and one container, one row, single column, and let's say a table. So this table, let's give some classes. So table and table hover and text center. Okay, and table stripe. Okay, so t head, table row, and th star 6 tab. You get some 6 columns. So what do you want? I want a serial number serial number, name of the person. What else are there? You check here. Name of the person, email, phone, or just say email, website, company. Okay, let's say name, email, website, or let's say city and zip code. Whatever you want, you can print. City and zip code. Okay, so let's check. I got my table, and let's have some BG. Let's give BG danger and the text what. Like you got a table. Why I use mostly reddish color is angular theme. Okay, if you don't want, you can just say BG secondary like that. Okay, so in this I need to have a data. So let's say T body table row. Yeah, now here very important story. There are how many elements? There are 10 records are there totally, right? So each row one object. So do we have to write multiple tr? Not required. We have a ng4 directive, so which we have understand in the previous classes. So let's use that. Let's say star ng4 let user of users. Okay, and let's say td expression, but you don't have a serial number, right? I just give one to just for timing. Let's check. So you got all one. Okay, let's keep this aside. I'll tell you. I'll come back and just fill out this remaining field because why I given one, there is no ID. Oh, sorry, I have an ID. Okay, okay, got it. Just say user dot ID is there. Okay, you can print the ID. So you get ID. Okay, nice. Name. So how you get the name? So td. This is name. You get the name and email. Just say email. You get an email and then website. You get a website and city. So if I say city, see there is no city. There is something called location. No, I think address dot city. Okay. If you have any question, you can just refer your component, your model. So where is our model? Yes, here it is. So ID, username, email, address. Address contains city address dot city. Okay, that way. And the last one is zip code. I guess it is address dot zip code. So you check, you got it. Okay, super. See, we got data from server. Okay, and that's fine. I can say some shadow for a table. Okay, this looks good. Okay, so now what happened when this component is loaded? I send a request to server and I can able to fetch data from the server and print it. Okay, you may do this way, or else you can have a button. When I click on the button, I want to get data. So that way also you can try. Okay, for example, when you want to have a button, let's say like this. Let's have a button with the class btn minus success and btn minus sm. Let's say get users. Okay, I have a button. So I don't need just data as it is. Generally, you get data when the component is loaded. But when you want particularly for button click, I want to get data. Okay, so for that reason, I'd say the click event. Let's say get users data. Okay, is my method. Copy. Go to the component ts file. Yeah, let's create public this guy. Yeah. So what it does is, so instead of calling it here, you may get it here. Okay, and let's check. There is no data. Correct, there is no data. When I click on this button, you got data. And also please check, why I made a button I tell you. So please check, this is what a server URL. If you want to get a data, see the the tab got refresh, right? When you want to fetch data from server, the tab got refresh. But here, see, this is Angular application. It comes under single page application. It means it is sending Ajax request to server. So you see, when I click on get data, there is no page refresh at all, even though you're fetching data from the server. That's the part of a single page application. Okay, so that's fine. Okay, so enough for this video, and let's see another concepts in the next video. Thank you.